Hi, everyone. Mike Malatesta here, and welcome back to the How Did Happen podcast. On this podcast, I dig in deep with every guest to explore the roots of their success, to discover not just how it happened, but why it matters. My mission is to find and share stories that inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you. On today's episode, I brought back Brad Zepecki, who was first on the show way back on episode number 57. And while you can hear his How Did It Happen story there, today we're talking about the quote-unquote new Brad, the guy who's struggling with himself and his startup business. We talk about heavy issues like never wanting to give up, disappointing the people who mean so much to you, and the challenge of getting back to who you are.
When you're dealing with so much challenge and failure and things not going the way you want them to go, you just start to blame yourself and you just start to kind of fall into this pit of despair, and you don't really know it's coming out as much as it actually is.
Brad is humble, vulnerable, and extremely human in this conversation. There's a lot of value here, so please dig in. Hey, Brad, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it was so for those of you who are listening, if you want to get the whole How Did It Happen story, well, I shouldn't say the whole How Did It Happen story because it's never the whole How Did It Happen story, but if you want to get Brad's How Did It Happen story, I encourage you to go back to episode 57. Brad was one of my first 100. It was like awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So way back to 57, and you will be in for a treat there because you'll find out the origin of his How Did It Happen story. But today it's kind of a different one because Brad reached out to me maybe a month or so ago, and we had a conversation about what's going on in his life and his journey today. And he wanted to come on and talk about it. And I was like, you know what? That is awesome because while I have had people on more than once, I've never had what's happening in the chapter of your life now that wasn't maybe on the radar when we did the first episode. Is that a fair way to put it, Brad?
That's right on the money, Mike.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's dig in. So rather than me asking you how it happened to you, I'm going to just ask you what's happening to you.
Yeah. So it's been almost 5 years since I left my previous company. And, in that podcast, talked about leaving and wanting to start my own company and then, really show my kids that it doesn't matter where you are in life, what your age is, that you could start your own company. And it really just became sort of this mission of mine, which was I was a CEO at one company. Of course, I'm going to jump in and build this new company. That's what I've been doing ever since for the last, I guess, four years, is building a company that I started called Octavian Technology Group.
So I talked to you right when you were getting started with this, and you also had your nonprofit Code the Way. So let's talk about Octavian first, because you were just getting it off the ground now, or then, 4 years ago. And there's something about it that's going on now that you didn't anticipate 4 years ago.
Yeah. So when I think I was in this mind space of I'm going to create this company, it's going to have some sort of technology offering. And it was, I don't want to say it was almost a foregone conclusion for me that at some point it was going to be successful and we were going to grow and it was going to be the next chapter in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And five years in, no one could predict the pandemic, obviously, but where I'm at right now is that's not going to be the future for me. Lots of different reasons. And like I said, I just thought I'd come on and just talk about when things don't go the way you think they're going to go. And you have not only yourself, but you have a lot of people that are close to you that almost just assume it's going to go well. And then you wake up one day and realize not only is it not going well, but you're not having any fun at all doing it. And so I think that's the real point that got me to want to talk to you is I think there's a lot of people maybe in my same boat that have started a company at some point in time and put everything they had into it. And whether there were things that were out of their control or bad decisions that they've made, whatever it might look like, I just want people to know they're not alone, because that's exactly where I'm at right now.
Well, tell me if this rings true to you. It feels like if you've done something meaningful, company building wise, let's say, you've done something meaningful, like when we talked last time at your old company, best place to work, you had awards going, you took the company from, or you helped take the company from a low point to a high point coming out of the Great Recession. There was just there's an expectation that you had something, and something special, something meaningful, something that people would rally around, something that would make a company successful. And it would be unnatural not to have that same expectation going into whatever it was that you decided to do next.
That's exactly right. It was almost a foregone conclusion. I had so many people just do your own thing. You're gonna kill it. You're gonna, you'll see nothing but success. You're a great team builder. All these positive traits that people tell you have, and I think it just is going to automatically translate to success.
Right.
And I'm here to tell you that that's not true.
So you're walking proof, living proof that building a successful company, whether you start it or whether you come in to run it or whatever, is a very difficult thing to do. And having done it, there's nothing about having done it that ensures that you would be able to do it again, even though everything around you would suggest otherwise.
That's what it is.
Otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. You have all the confidence in the world. You have all the support, a lot of excitement. The space you're in seems to make total sense. Product market fit looks great. But then when you really start to get in and execute on it, and you start building a team, and things they don't work the way you expect them to work.
Right.
And so, you get to a point, not to jump ahead, but you get to a point where you realize that there's just too many headwinds, and you never want to give up. If you're a competitor in business and you want to take pride in what you're trying to do, you never want to give up, because we're always told never give up.
Yeah.
And so I just was not going to give up. I was not going to have my kids see me give up. But what I then realized was, I'm not giving up. I'm just realizing that this particular period of my life is what it is. I learned I learned so much that's not going to define sort of the rest of my story.
Yeah. So you mentioned your kids a couple of times, Brad. You mentioned them, wanting to show them, at least I think I remember, in the context of wanting to show them that you could do it, that we're going to create this great thing and my kids are going to be proud of me as a result. And then what you were just saying, again, when you mentioned your kids, it was sort of like, how are my kids going to feel about this journey? How are they going to feel like I disappointed them, that I somehow failed in what I said I was going to do or promised I was going to do? I mean, tell me about how that's rattling around in your head.
Yeah, for a long time it wasn't rattling around very positively, I'll tell you that. I think you just want to give them what you think is a good example in being successful and what it takes. And they've been great. I mean, I'm a lot harder on myself than they are on me. That's for sure. And so I think you just realize that they're still going to be your kids. They still remember, even though they've moved away. My daughter's married and she lives in Minneapolis. My son's at Whitewater. It's amazing kind of what you realize when you talk to them about it. Like, they're really not that disappointed. I mean, the response has been, while we're, disappointed that it didn't work out, we know your next thing is going to be great. And so then sort of it became, I have to admit failure and then take this opportunity to show them what that looks like and how to respond to failure, because we're all going to fail at some point in our lives. So that's sort of the kid dynamic at this point.
And it's weird, right? Because you spend all this time thinking about how they're going to be thinking about you, and it may not just be kids. It could be. Think about this. Like listening to this. Think about all the people in your life who you are thinking about all the time about what they're thinking about you, and you're basically putting yourself in their shoes, and you have no business being there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
But it eats you up. And in some cases it can control you. I'm not suggesting that's your case, but in some cases that can really control a person.
That'd control me.
Yeah.
For the last I probably did this a year and a half too long, maybe. Because of that, I was not going to let them see me fail. Like it just wasn't an option. So it was controlling me.
Yeah.
It was, I just didn't want them to see it, and then you got to sit in it and own it. And then once you get to that point where you realize you're just not happy doing what you're doing.
Right. Well, it sounds to me like you knew that a long time before now, and you may have actually said that you knew that a long time before now, but there's another, I'd like to explore a little bit with you this whole notion of not wanting to give up, not wanting to quit, even when you've sort of resigned yourself to the fact that quitting is probably the better option than continuing to move forward, but still quitting comes with, an admission, I guess. It's never real until you actually do it, even if you feel it way before. So, and what I mean by that is it's real a long time before, but when you don't admit it, when you don't give into it, you're somehow keeping it from actually being real. So help us understand how, when you came to the conclusion initially, or at least the inkling that, hey, this may not work the way that I wanted. What did you talk to anybody about that? Or did you just say, yeah, but I can't admit that? Or did you say, well, if I just work harder, I know I can get it? There's a lesson in there for us. What is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because it had always been on my mind, in the back of my mind, about the fact that maybe this wasn't something that I was going to want to do. And then you kind of put it away and just say, you know what? I'm just not going to pay attention to that thought or that feeling. And you get back to the work at hand, you get back to your meetings, you get back to your customers and the day-to-day, because there's a financial component that is always part of the discussion. You can't just not think about the financial part of it. And so I couldn't really turn the page like I wanted to until actually my wife, she just said to me one day, like, what are you doing? Like, you're not, you don't know what kind of person you are, but your wife knows what kind of what person they're living with,
Right.
and she sees me day to day, and I didn't really realize it. And she's just like, you are not happy at all. Like, this is not the business Brad, the leader that she knew I was. And it was at that moment where I was like, yeah, I can't, to the point that my word of, I have this word every year. And my word this year has been revival, just to try to kind of get back to being who I am. Because when you're in it and you don't want to quit, it's just, you get this tunnel vision and you make sacrifices to your own well-being, and you just lose priorities, and it becomes messy. And I think it's, for me anyways, and I think it wasn't until that moment where that really sunk in, when she said that. And we had something happen this year business wise that was sort of the icing on the cake. But to your point, I had been there months earlier, and this was just kind of oh, well, I guess that makes it easier, to wind it down. Like, oh, okay, guess this really is not going to continue, type thing.
And when your wife said to you, this isn't, who are you? You're different. Were you surprised by that? And the reason I'm asking is because, me personally, I feel like I'm feeling stuff all the time, right? I'm like like every human being, but I also feel like I'm a master at keeping it, the outside appearance. I'm a master at keeping it the way that I want it to be seen, even if on the inside it isn't. But I think the people who know me, who are perceptive of me, can see through that BS, and I don't think they can, because I think I'm doing such a great job at covering up.
Yeah,
right?
That's great.
So were you surprised when she said it to you? Or were you like, oh my God, you saw it? I've been hiding this. How could you? Or what?
Yeah. And it's, you try to get good at compartmentalizing things, and I realize I am not good at that. I would get her to see. So I already knew. I've always worn my emotions on my sleeve. That's been a blessing and a curse for me, because you typically know, normally people know when I'm down and I'm not in my best mood or whatever that may be. And you just, in the difference this time around was, I actually thought I was doing a good job. And then I realized, wow, you're really not doing a good job of compartmentalizing and putting on this facade, to the point where I was out talking to people that I knew, and they were just like, what's going on? Like, and I didn't even realize that I was in that space where usually I would know. And then I'm in, if that's making sense, it's typically, when you're talking to somebody and you're doing a good job of presenting the person you want to present, that everyone knows you as.
Yep.
But I got to a point where even though I was doing that and thought I was doing that, people were still picking up. And that's when it got scary for me, because then I realized, man, I got some stuff going on that I can't control. And that's actually the one of the big reasons I wanted to talk to you was, I don't know if people are going through that, but that can be very scary, because then that's when you start to not want to talk to people, because you don't want that. You're kind of not in control about how you're coming across. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Can you give me an example? Because I'm like, when I'm listening to you, I'm hearing my self-awareness has dulled. And I used to think that was a superpower of mine, being, having better self-awareness than anyone else.
Yeah.
So that I could pick up on cues and I could really get what I wanted out of the thing. And I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, but that's what I was hearing. But I want to make sure that I'm hearing it right. And I just thought maybe an example might help.
Yeah, I think I just met with a longtime friend of mine, and we met like 3 or 4 times, and he finally just said, where's the spark? And I was like, what are you talking about? Where's the spark? Like, the spark's right here. Like, we're laughing, and he's just like, no, you're just not the same. And I was like, didn't know how to respond to that. And then actually someone that I met with, it's kind of a networking over a beer. And this person said some things to me at the end that weren't very complimentary in my opinion. And, ultimately he was right, but I just felt like I just didn't realize that I wasn't coming across. And the person even said, like, 5 years ago, you were this person. Where is that person? That person's not here right now. And I was just like blown away. I was, and then I went home and I was mad. And then I went home, and that's when I was really like, I got to figure out and understand what's happening with me right now, because, I kind of miss that guy, and he hasn't been around for a while, because when you're dealing with so much challenge and failure and things not going the way you want them to go, that you just start to blame yourself, and you just start to kind of fall into this pit of despair, and you don't really know it's coming out as much as it actually is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because if I'm putting myself in your shoes, you're at this event, this person says this stuff to you, and you're like, you have 2 ways to react, right? You could either be like, well, thank you, that's really nice of you to tell me what you're thinking, or you could be like, well, F you. Guys, you're just being an ass to me. And I don't know, but then, which sounded like it was your initial reaction. But then when you went home, you sort of thought, well, maybe that guy's, or whoever it was, is right. Maybe there's something there and then it must have scared the crap out of you, right? Because you're like, some person that sees me at a networking event and is referencing what I was like 5 years ago, maybe hasn't seen me in a long time, and now saying I'm like this. You can be like, what's happened, right?
That's exactly it.
That's maybe the worst kind of validation. Wow.
Yeah, not great. Not a great feeling. It's you really find out who you are then. Yeah. And so that's been a challenge for sure.
I want to get into the partnership thing and all that, because that's have some bearing on this. It's not just your children, right? But it's very brave of you to come on and talk about this, because here's the reality, at least as far as my world goes. There is not a person out there who isn't struggling through some period of their life thinking that they aren't living up to the potential they want everyone to believe that they have, and they don't want anybody to know about it. It's I know I feel that way all the time. Fortunately, like in my book, I called it the valley of uncertainty. Like, drop down into this valley. The key is like, how long do you stay there before you can bounce back up? But it can be a really lonely place. And if it doesn't take much to keep slipping, you try to climb up and you slip a little bit, and you try to climb up and you slip a little bit, and you can get in that valley and you can stay there for a while, just uncertain about everything in your life. And not everything in your life, but uncertain about whatever it is that's causing you to be there and doing anything about it. Actually doing the opposite, like when your friend or the networking person says, this guy, who are you? Instead of taking that as, like medicine for improvement, you instead say, you instead blame that person for why you're here. It's like that person has no idea what they're doing. So I think it's very brave. And this whole thing that that sort of precipitated this whole thing. I've been up here and everybody said, I'm going to do great. And you don't do that. You don't do that great. And I'll use myself, like, I've had my share of business success. I've had plenty of challenges along the way, but people, see the outside and they say, well, look at, you've done pretty well. But like podcasting, for example, I mean, I'm not the Joe Rogan of podcasting. And you know what? I should be. That's what I tell myself. I should be. Why am I not? Right? What am I doing that's any different than what he's doing? And when you start to get that in your head, it can really mess with you. And like I said way earlier, doing something like running a business or having a top podcast or you name it, whatever it is freaking, it's really freaking hard, man. And if you do it once, does not mean that you will do it again.
It's definitely been humbling. That's for sure.
So let me ask you about your partnership, because and I don't know I don't know the specifics of it, but I do know that you have a partner in this business. And so there's another component of like, this person, I'm assuming this person partnered with me because they knew I could, make this thing big and successful and all that. And maybe they're relying on you. Maybe you're reliant on each other. That's probably the case. But well, you tell me what's it been like and what is it like for you?
The partner that I have now isn't the one that I started with. I think when I first left the company before, we were in the Milwaukee Business Journal. I partnered with Northwestern Mutual execs to do some data science work. And those guys were great, super talented people. But in the end, we were in different places. We wanted different things and we couldn't solidify that. And so I ended up partnering with another gentleman in a different technology, more in the artificial intelligence space, which is obviously suddenly pretty popular topic. And so we just decided to, I decided to give him equity, and he's earned every point of it, I guess. For me, he is sort of the product, and there's no one more talented than he is by a long shot, in my opinion. But the problem I think that we faced for me was that I kind of always knew in the back of my mind, at least I felt like I was letting him down, because what the business needed and where my skills were, my strengths weren't necessarily aligned. And that's actually one of the biggest lessons that I learned is you have to be able to do just about everything when you start a business, except maybe the execution part or the delivery part. You could be selling a product or selling services. You really need to be able to have that story of taking it to the market and selling it and then delivering whatever it is you're selling. And I had deficiencies in some of the things that the business needed. And I didn't necessarily think they were that big, but then over time, as we started to really do marketing and going and selling, what the business needed was something beyond my skill set. And I think that's when we realized, at least I realized, that we'd have to pivot, and we just couldn't come up with anything that made sense because of those deficiencies. And the team, we just didn't have the rounded out team that we needed, along with the capital to support that. And so that was, but my partner now is, like I said, I just feel like I could have done more for him to build the business the way it needed to be built.
And today you've sort of made this decision about putting an end to this, but you haven't executed it with.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I think he realizes that we're winding things down, but there's still customers that we have to take care of. And this is another new thing for both of us. He may decide that he wants to do something with, we still have to talk through those things. I just want to be fair to him.
Right.
And give him whatever opportunity. I mean, he sacrificed a lot to try to build this, and we all did, everybody that was involved. So I think it's just, as in anything, trying to do it right up until the end is, and he may decide he wants to take it and try to continue to build it with someone new. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm very optimistic and hopeful that it goes well and we continue to be friends.
Yeah, to maintain the relationship.
Yeah.
Sure. And so when that does happen in the very near future, Brad, where do you go? I mean, what's your plan?
Yeah, I think well, backing up just a little bit. I have started to network and put my resume out to a few people and talk about what potentially could be next. But for me, what I'm really trying to focus on right now is just getting my mind and my headspace in the right, because I'm still gun shy because of what we were talking about before. When I go out and talk to people, I want to make sure, I keep referencing the old Brad. I guess there's this new Brad that I've got to sort of be comfortable with, that now has coming out of the valley of uncertainty. And I still think I'm in there. I still think I am, and depression creeps in. I'm not ashamed to say that word. It happens. And so I want to be ready, mind wise, and to take on whatever the next challenge is and be in a good headspace. So what's next for me is continuing to do that. And I do feel like every day is getting better as I talk about this, and I sort of made my peace with the situation. And I've had conversations with people that have done, and I guess that's, I'm so thankful and the people that might listen to this, they'll know who they are. I couldn't do it without them. And so if there's anyone out there that is in my position, just talk to the people that give you energy, that care about you, and you'll over time find a way out. And so I'm really hoping I don't slip back, but I feel like I'm coming out of it. And I've got a few things that I'm working on, and I'm excited about those things. And I just want to get, purpose, place, provisions. I'm missing a couple P's, but they all lead to your personal peace. And so I'm working on getting those where they need to be, and turning the page on whatever's next.
Our first episode together, 57, we talked a little bit about the impact that Simon Sinek's Start With Why had on you at some point. And are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about a new why? Or is it too early for that?
It's a really good question. I think, I don't know. That's tough, because I think you have your why, like whatever career you pick, you have your why. That was the big thing I came up with when I was at my previous company, is why am I doing this? I think some of those continue to flow through. I care about people. That's what I've really realized. And I want to help people be better in whatever they're deciding to do, part of a team, obviously in technology, some role there, space there. But but you also have your life why. And so those have blended together a lot more than they were previously. And so I'm trying to, providing for your family is a why, like that, those realities that you didn't used to worry about, now you do, because you've invested a lot of time and money into this business. And so you have to accept the fact that didn't reap the rewards that you expected them to reap. And so now you're digging out of that as well. So that's a very long answer. I apologize. I think the whys are evolving. Okay. Here. But I will definitely be making sure that I pay attention to that, whatever happens next.
And you've described yourself a couple of times with this old Brad, new Brad, kind of boxes, I guess. And I'm wondering, so you have old Brad, new Brad. What are you thinking about for next Brad? Do you want to go back to old Brad? Do you want to become new Brad, except for some of the things that you don't want? And I'm just curious. Like, I don't think I've ever, and I don't know why, but I don't think I've ever thought of myself in that way, like old Mike, new Mike, next Mike. So I'm just curious what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think probably a hybrid, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I want pieces of the old Brad, the more confident Brad. That's definitely my old confident self. High, have the energy, always positive, excited about the day, challenges of the day. But the new Brad, I think, is also someone that I've got to prioritize sort of my own well-being, my own health.
Yeah.
which caused me to, ultimately leave my previous job. And so I think it's a blend of finding that confidence, purpose, connection with people. Those are my core values. So I want to really make sure they're my four core values were purpose, connection, security, and fun. Getting back to those and make sure I'm addressing those so that I can be the best version of myself for the people that are around me, that care about me, that love me, and be able to love them in a way that they'll remember.
Right.
I think I'm very hopeful that this next step is actually the best version once I finally come out of it, whenever that is. So I'm kind of excited, but I'm also and impatient. I know it takes time, but yeah, probably a little bit of a mix of the two. Hopefully that answered what you're getting at there.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a very good likelihood that the next version will be the best version, because I have this saying, although it's difficult to live minute to minute, it's not difficult to live over a long period of time. And that is that the best is yet to come. If I try to live the best is yet to come every minute, it just doesn't work, because it's a long term thing that you can't put focus on. You can't focus on every second, every minute of the day, because it's too hard, because so many things go wrong. You're like, I'm just freaking kidding myself if I'm saying the best is yet to come, but it's not true, because everything that gets hard for you, you figure out a way to get past. And once you figure out a way to get past, and then you look at it in, over a period of time, you go, well, it's right. The best is yet to come.
Yeah.
I didn't think so when I was in it, but having been in it and having gone through it, it just kind of leads to that. And you mentioned energy a few times. They say, you want to be around people who give you energy, and don't be around people who take energy away from you. But you know what? Sometimes you take energy away from yourself, and you got to, and that sounds like what is and what's been happening to you. You take energy out of yourself, and then you shut it off. You shut off energy, because you're once you are depleting yourself of energy, it's almost like you don't have the battery cables to attach to another person who has energy to give you. And so you're just kind of boxed in there, and then maybe you become the person who doesn't give energy to anybody else. And then you're like, what the hell is going on here?
That's exactly right. Yeah, you always want to be 70-30%, I think, is what my coach talks about, is doing things and being around people that give you energy 70% of the time. And then you need that energy for the other 30% of things that maybe, because we all are doing some things we don't necessarily want to do or aren't super excited about.
Yeah.
But it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And what I found is, I was inverted in a really unhealthy way, because there's just things that this required that not in my strength finder or whatever. Like, it's just not. And then you beat yourself up because you should have known that, when you dove into this, and it just kind of snowballs, and then things, then you get to the point where I'm at now, where you're just like, it's not a good setup.
Well, again, it's kind of like, if you're starting something new, how could you possibly know all the things that are needed? It's just such a different life to run something that, even if it's not performing well, is off the ground, than it is to literally lift something off the ground by starting it. It's different. It's different. And for a guy like you, as accomplished as you are, to say and admit, like, there were some things that this business needed that I didn't have. There were skill sets this business needed that I didn't have. And it had to be so frustrating to one, acknowledge that, but two, once you've realized it, to not have the resources, or whatever, to get that who or whoever that person is that had that skill set, right? Because if you could have done that, that's problem solved, and you're all sort of right. But instead, you can't solve the problem. You just don't have the.
And you get to that. That's the end game. That's when you realize you've tried everything. You've explored all your resources. You've spent hours strategizing about other things you could do. And then you just come to the conclusion that we either need a bunch of more money, and when that becomes the idea, and how much you would actually need, you just realize we would need to restart. we would need to start over. And I think the good news though in all this is that we did take care of the people that worked here, and the clients that we did work with. Feel pretty good about that. So yeah, sometimes it just isn't meant to be.
What can you tell us about your work with your coach? You mentioned your coach.
Oh, she's a lifesaver. I've been working with her for 3 or 4 years, 5 years, maybe even longer. As a CEO or an owner, I think most people are kind of jumping on that bandwagon of having a coach. I don't know how you could do it without, because it's so lonely. It's lonely at the top is what people say. And where she's really helped me is understanding the why based on like who I am. She knows who I am. She took me through one of the personality tests. I don't know if it was, I always forget. And then she can kind of apply that and help just give you clarity as to not a solution necessarily, but clarity as to why you're feeling the way you're feeling, why you're challenged with this situation or person or problem, whatever it might be. And then ideas to, when you go out for the next month and apply those to the situation. And she's usually right. And so it's just a different lens into your life. As much as you want to open up with your coach, I would recommend the more the better. But it's really been helpful, help keeping me a little bit sane.
Right.
So highly recommended for sure.
Okay. What's the first thing you're going to do when it's officially
Octavian? Yeah.
Octavian, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Well, hopefully I'm going to have a new career before that, because we're still going to have some clients that are winding down.
Okay.
Oh, honestly, I might just throw a party, Mike. Like it's it's going to feel so good to be back with the team, whatever that looks like, and to have some purpose back and be able to help people. But the first thing I'm going to do is probably just take a deep breath and just kind of say thank God we moved past it and we're on to the next thing.
Take a deep breath and have a party. And
be
thankful. And laugh more. Fun is one of your core values.
That's right.
Right.
Got to have some fun. So yeah, that's a good question, but that's what I think. Just breathe a sigh of relief. It's been really hard for me, and it's been probably harder for my wife to watch, someone that used to be so confident and just successful to, someone struggle. Like it's got to be hard for her. That's what maybe I just give my wife a big hug and a kiss, and that might be the first thing too. I don't know.
All right. Well, I'll
keep you posted.
Any of those would work, I think.
Yeah.
So before we go, Brad, is there anything that I haven't asked you or that you would like to leave with me and those listening? I
don't know. This has been great. I mean, I'm thank you for having me back. It's always hard to know that what your story is gonna help someone or resonate with someone. And that's really was my goal. It's hard to talk about this stuff because you got to be super vulnerable and you have to be willing for people to judge you.
Yeah.
Which is going to happen. And there's a lot of fear around that because I still don't have my next opportunity. But, for me, it is just if any of what I've been through resonates with you, and you ever want to talk, I don't have to know you. You can send me a note on LinkedIn, you can whatever, connect with you, Mike, and just you just got to keep going, I think, is the message. No matter how hard it gets, it's just that next day, even though you don't want to get out of bed, even though it doesn't seem like things are ever going to go your way, and just the next thing that's going to happen is going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into that mind space, you just have to find a way to get out. And I have a lot of thoughts I can tell, if you reach out, I can kind of tell you what I did, what I am doing. Really just know that if your heart is in the right place and you're trying to do right by people and it still doesn't work out, you at least have that. You at least have that you just did your best. And, that's really it, is just hang in there. You'll get through it.
Well, Brad, I'm just happy that you chose to come on the show today, talk about this experience. It's been a painful experience, and
help us understand not only how you were feeling during it, but how you're feeling about getting through it. And I just feel like it was a very human conversation that everyone can relate to in some part of their life. And too many people, one, aren't going to, they're not going to admit that, hey, everybody has something like this, first of all. And two, they're not going to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to talk about it. They're just going to hope that it goes away at some point, or they're just going to become bitter people who think that this is all some conspiracy against them, instead of just being like, this is life. This is what happens. It doesn't always go the way that I thought it would. And it's good the struggle is what makes you stronger, right? That's what they say. The struggle makes you stronger. And I do very, very much believe that for you and for everybody, you keep moving forward, as you said, and the best is definitely yet to come.
Thanks so much, Mike.
My pleasure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show. And before you go, I just have 3 requests for you. 1, if you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing or following the podcast on whatever podcast platform you prefer. If you're really into it, leave me a review, write something nice about me, give me 5 stars or whatever you feel is most appropriate. Number 2, I've got a book. It's called Owner Shift: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. It's an Amazon bestseller. And I'd love for you to read it or listen to it on Audible or wherever else, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can get it everywhere. If you're looking for inspiration that will help you unlock your greatness and potential, order or download it today so that you can have your very own copy. And if you get it, please let me know what you think. Number 3, my newsletter. I do a newsletter every Thursday, and I talk about things that are interesting to me, or I give more information about the podcast and the podcast guests that I've had and the experiences that I've had with them. You can sign up for the podcast today at my website, which is my name, MikeMalatesta.com. You do that right now, put in your email address, and you'll get the very next issue. The newsletter is short, thoughtful, and designed to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you.